Let's now welcome once more our special colleague, Jorge Gestoso, who is in Ecuador to bring us all the details from Ecuador and what can we expect. Hello, Jorge. Welcome again to From the South. What can you tell us at this hour in Ecuador?
At this hour, the situation is running against the clock because at 7 in the morning, the polls are going to be opening and the state of exception has been decreed by President Noboa early this morning in 7 provinces of the Ecuadorian territory, including the larger cities and including areas where the voters are more inclined to vote for the candidate Luisa Gonzalez. That is being interpreted as a resource trying to influence the voting in these areas. Supposedly, the excuse is there's an increased level of insecurity and crimes rampant, and therefore they want to assure that the situation is under control. The other side of the coin is, as I mentioned, that President Noboa is trying also to play that card and is going to be absolutely criticized for that. In another area, the National Electoral Council has decreed that Ecuadorians living in Venezuela are not going to be able to vote. They are not going to be able to vote because the excuse is they don't have the resources to hire all the personnel necessary to implement the voting in the country. Therefore, Ecuadorians living in, we're talking about several parts of Venezuela, but mostly the votes were going to be in Caracas, are really protesting that decision because, again, they believe that is a way that they're trying to play the votes to eliminate the possibility that those votes go for Luisa Gonzalez. In another area, the network CBS News in the US were publishing notes, and they are mentioning or talking about what they call US intelligence without mentioning more than that. US intelligence says that US intelligence prefer Daniel Noboa to win the election because the quote unquote several things in common that they have with his government. And of course, along that situation and on that note, they start to discredit the candidate, his rival. We're talking about Luisa Gonzalez, because they're mentioning the former president Rafael Correa, that he has governed the country for 10 years, 2007, 2017. They call that movement El Correísmo, and they say that Luisa Gonzalez is the one who inherited that Correísmo, but they try to pointing dirt in Correa, saying that in that wire, that President Correa is a friend of Russia to create fear, which is a lie. Also, they say in the wire that Luisa Gonzalez has been financed by President Nicolás Maduro, which is also a lie. And also they mentioned that President Noboa will be also ready to help to install a military base in the territory of Ecuador that is not being precisely where. They could be the Galapagos Island or could be other places. So they try to portray what they call the US intelligence as President Noboa as a friend of the US, and in the case of Luisa Gonzalez, someone who really is the bad situation, the bad call. It's also important to see that the reaction of what happened in Venezuela, that they do not let the Ecuadorians living in Venezuela to vote, has created repercussions all over the world, because in terms of figures, we're talking about 450,000 Ecuadorians living overseas outside of the country. Not necessarily all of them are inscribed to vote, but definitely that could create an impact in the elections and that is being watched very closely in terms of if that situation is not going to be repeated in another places. Mostly the US and Spain are the two countries where most of the Ecuadorians in exile live. So we're talking about also what is going to go on the air tomorrow. 7 o'clock, the polls open, 5 p.m., the closing of the polls. And in this country, by 5 p.m., the polls close, and there's no extension if someone is not arriving on time. They are not waiting online to vote. Definitely it's closed. And the National Electoral Council anticipates that by 9 p.m. they could have an irreversible trend of who could be the winner. We get back to you now.
Gestoso, a quick question. Is there a growing concern maybe in the country that with all these decisions that are being taken this Saturday, first with the state of exemption, now with Ecuadorians abroad that cannot vote in certain countries, do you believe that people are maybe concerned that the current executive is trying to control the outcome of tomorrow's election?
Well, I hear you pretty badly, so I'm guessing what I think that I hear. That I understand that you are asking me if there's concern and that situation of Ecuadorian voters living overseas cannot vote is creating concern, is creating disgust, and is creating the perception that here is smelling the word that they want to pronounce it, that is fraud, and they believe that even though most of the polls show the candidate Luisa Gonzalez, the challenger, to win in terms of votes, the fear is that could be fraud on the air in order of president candidate Daniel Noboa to stick on the power.
Thank you, Jorge Gestoso, for the latest inputs coming from Ecuador. We're going to be in touch in upcoming news brief to have the latest